Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to crack open a classic, a code so clever it literally turns simple words into a complex math problem. We're talking about the Hill Cipher, which was a huge leap forward in the history of secret messages. So let's just start with this question. How do you go from a basic secret code that, a kid could figure out, to one that needs some serious university-level math just to work? That's the journey we're going on today. To really get why the Hill Cipher was such a game-changer, we first have to take a quick look at what came before it, and more importantly, why those older codes just weren't cutting it anymore. For the longest time, most codes were just simple substitution ciphers. You swap an A for a B, a C for a D, and so on. The problem? Every language has its own rhythm, its own patterns. In English, for instance, the letter E is used way more than any other letter. So if you're a code breaker and you see one symbol popping up over and over again, well, you can bet that's probably your E. That little trick is called frequency analysis, and it made these ciphers surprisingly easy to break. So a totally new kind of defense was needed, something that could just completely hide those telltale letter patterns. The solution wasn't just a slightly better code, it was a completely different way of thinking. And that new way of thinking was called polygraphic substitution. The core idea here is just brilliant. Instead of swapping one letter at a time, you encrypt blocks of letters, 2, 3, maybe more, all at once. This just scrambles the message on a whole new level, making it almost impossible to spot the frequency of any single letter. The code just got way, way tougher. And the genius who brought this to life was an American mathematician named Lester S. Hill. Back in 1929, he published his method. And what made it so special was that it was the first of its kind to use linear algebra, we're talking major C's, vectors, that kind of stuff, to make a practical cipher. He literally brought higher mathematics into the world of espionage. How cool is that? Okay, so theory is great, but let's actually get our hands dirty and see how you can turn a regular word into a secret math equation. It's actually more straightforward than you might think. First things first, math works with numbers, right? Not letters. So the very first step is to translate our message. We just assign a number to each letter of the alphabet. Pretty simple. A is 0, B is 1, all the way up to Z, which is 25. This basically turns our words into a language the cipher can actually understand. So here's the big picture. You take your message, which is now a string of numbers, and you chop it up into small groups, or vectors. Then you have your secret key, and this key is a grid of numbers called a matrix. You multiply your message vectors by this key matrix. The result? A totally new scrambled set of number vectors. Then you just turn those numbers back into letters. It's kind of like a mathematical blender, where the key matrix is the blade that does all the scrambling. Now this formula might look a little intense, but stick with me, it's actually not that bad. It basically says your new encrypted text is the result of multiplying your key matrix by your plain text vector. And that mod 26 part at the end, that's just a clever trick to make sure our answers always land somewhere between 0 and 25, so we can turn them back into letters of the alphabet. Simple as that. Let's make this real for a second. Let's say we take the word code and we encrypt it with the secret key DCDF. The Hill Cipher does its thing, churns through the math, and bam, it spits out WWVA. As you can see, there's absolutely no obvious link between the original word and the encrypted one. The message is completely hidden in plain sight. So how in the world do you get the original message back? Well, you have to run that blender in reverse. And to do that, you need a very special mathematical key, the inverse of the original key matrix. Only someone who has this very specific inverse key can multiply it by the ciphertext and perfectly reverse the process, revealing the original word, code. If you don't have that inverse key, you don't get the message, period. So this cipher seems incredibly powerful, right? But how did it actually hold up in the real world? Well, like any new tech, it had some pretty serious strengths, but it also had a critical flaw. The advantages, for its time, were just massive. Because it encrypted blocks of letters, it was totally immune to that simple frequency analysis we talked about. You could also make it stronger just by using a bigger key matrix, which made it way harder to crack by just guessing. And the fact that it was all built on the solid rules of linear algebra was a huge step up for cryptography. But here's the Achilles heel, the very thing that made it so strong. Its foundation in linear algebra was also what made it vulnerable. See, if an attacker could get their hands on just a little piece of the original message and its encrypted version, they could set up a system of linear equations and basically solve for this secret key. This is called a known plain text attack, and for the Hill Cipher, it was a fatal flaw. But even with this weakness, the Hill Cipher's place in history is totally secure.
Its real importance wasn't that it was the ultimate unbreakable code, but it was about the future it pointed to.
At the end of the day, what Lester Hill really proved was that abstract math could be an incredibly powerful tool in cryptography. He basically laid the conceptual foundation for all the modern block ciphers we use today without even thinking about it, like AES, the Advanced Encryption Standard. His work was a vital stepping stone, showing everyone that the future of security was going to be this fusion of math and machines.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating thought. The Hill Cipher hid a message inside a math problem. Today, every time you shop online or send a secure text, your data is being protected by way more complex math problems running silently in the background. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other parts of our modern world are built on a foundation of secret math that we never even get to see?